Hello everyone, Travis here playtesting a new deck. It's called Forged in Oil. I haven't fooled around with a lot of oil counter stuff except for the various Mind Splice apparatus decks, so I thought it was time that we go ahead and see what Mono Red had to offer us. And Arena has been mean to me lately, meaning every time that I put together a deck, it can't have more than 2 5-costing cards in it, or it gives me all those cards up front. And they're dead cards, and I lose to very fast decks before I can ever get the second card out. But then I make a deck like this, and the average converted mana cost is 2.2. So it's kind of a cheap deck. I only have, again, 2 cards that cost 5 mana. That's the max that I'm doing. And my playtesting has been horrible so far because I keep coming up against decks with green in it that manage to put out 5, 6, and 7 costing creatures very early on. That's a way to gain life. Not sure that we like that. Let's see. We can go ahead and give one of our guys lifelink. Yes? We'll give it to... Oops. Hey. I guess we're just attacking with everybody. Did I do that wrong? I did that wrong. I don't think it matters too much. Even if they have a board wipe, we've still got Urbrass Forge. And if I do this right, we can give somebody flying. Okay, remove an oil counter. Yes. Target a creature I control. Yes. Give it flying. Yes. Choose attackers. We're done. So long, Missy. Alright. It's about time something went our way. Let's go ahead and show you the whole deck. To the new subscribers, thanks for joining me the last few days. I've had a handful sign up. If you're brand new, go ahead and consider subscribing. Forged in Oil. Okay, so at 2.2 cost, I only have 20 lands instead of 24 because we have such a cheap deck. And look at all the 1-drops that I have. It's just very unusual for me. Over here on the land side, I've got 1 Autonomous Furnace for card draw, 1 Field of Ruin in case they have a specialty land, and 2 Monumental Facades. They come into the battlefield with 2 oil counters on each one. I can just use them for regular mana, or I can spend a turn, tap them, and put an oil counter onto an artifact or a creature that I control. The only drawback, I can only activate them as sorceries. Some things to help out, I've got 4 Furnace Skull Bombs. They replace each themselves. I can just spend 1, draw a card if things aren't going my way. If I have the mana and the right things in place on the field, I can sacrifice them, give 2 oil counters, and then still draw a card, but I have to activate it as a sorcery. The star of the show is Urbrass Forge. I only have 2 of them right now, so for those who don't know, we are a free-to-play account. I don't burn a lot of my wild cards. I'm usually under a self-imposed moratorium on using the wild cards. To craft cards, just to make it more of a challenge for me, because I started playing this almost 30 years ago when it was brand new, and I came back during the COVID lockdown and discovered Arena Online. And so I've done a lot of playing of the actual game in the past. I've done, I've been in tournament play and stuff like that. I wanted more of a challenge other than to just craft everything that I could ever want and go out and win on Mythic Ranked. So we're doing a little something different on this channel. We're showing you that you can take a nice card like Urbrass Forge and still craft a good winning deck that's competitive, even though you didn't spend money to do anything. And even though if maybe you're brand new and you don't have those kind of wild cards, this is what the environment would be like. But Urbrass Forge, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put an oil counter on it, so it gets an oil counter every single turn. You get a token creature that you see to the right, the Phyrexian Horror. It has trample and haste, and its power increases with the oil counters you put on it. So with things like Furnace Skullbomb, we could put that onto our creatures maybe and make them even bigger. We've got 3 copies of Churning Reservoir. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put an oil counter on another artifact or creature, but this one has to be a non-token. So that can increase things like the artifact itself, and then the token itself will get more power as a result of the artifact having more oil tokens on it, or oil counters. Exuberant Fuseling, this one's kind of cool. Starts off as a 0/1. It gets a +1 for each oil counter on it. And of course, we have so many ways to put oil counters on things. This thing has trample. Whenever it enters the battlefield and whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into the graveyard, it also gets an oil counter. So if they don't get rid of this thing, but they get rid of our other creatures, this gets more powerful. For removal, we have just a few things. We have 1 Flame Blessed Bolt. We have Free from Flesh that actually helps our creatures, gives them +2 until end of turn, and more oil counters. Vindictive Flamestoker. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets an oil counter. Eventually, if you want, you can discard your hand by sacrificing this 1/2 creature and draw 4 cards. And for every oil counter it has, the ability costs 1 less. So if your 1/2 hangs around long enough, you could have maybe an empty hand, draw 4 cards for only 1 red mana. Kind of interesting. Otherwise, they're a chump blocker. 1 Kami's Flare that deals 3 damage. This can also attack planeswalkers. It's another removal. 4 Reckless Impulse. This kind of takes the place of my other 4 lands that would put me up to 24 lands. As long as I have 2 mana, then I can just dig through a couple cards in my deck, and historically, if I need land, I'll get it. Tablet of Completion. You put an oil counter on it just by tapping it. You can use it for mana once it has 2 oil counters on it. Later, if you got 5 or more oil counters on it, you can spend 1 mana and draw an extra card. 4 copies of Magmatic Sprinter. It's a 3/2 warrior with haste. When it enters the battlefield, you put 2 oil counters on a creature you control. You can put it on the Sprinter, and then at the end of the turn, you remove those 2 oil counters, and it stays on the field. If you put the oil counters somewhere else, the Sprinter's going to come back up into your hand, like the Samurai from Kamigawa, and you just recast it each turn. So a lot of what we might be doing is putting 2 oil counters on Urbrass Forge, and then letting this come back up into our hand and recasting it. For more removal, these are the next 2 spells. Rending Flame, deal 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Skipping over to Atraxis Skitterfang. Has 3 oil counters on it when it comes into the field. At the beginning of combat, you may remove an oil counter. You don't have to. When you do, you choose what you want, and it gets either Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, or Lifelink. And if you have more than 1 copy out on the field at the same time, you can give them multiple different mechanics if you want to, if it makes sense. 3 copies of Ickerplate Golem. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it has 1 or more oil counters on it, you get another oil counter on it. And creatures you control with oil counters all get +1/+1. Urbrass Anointer, artifact creature. It's a Phyrexian wizard, 2 copies of it. When it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage, where X is the number of permanents you control with oil counters on them. By the time we get this and can afford it, we should have 3 or 4 things that have oil counters on them. And 2 Burn Down the Houses for board wipes. That really just puts us up at 6 removal cards, which is kind of low. So we're kind of hoping to have early quick knockouts, like we did in the first match you just saw. Which makes sense, because we're dealing with mono red, right? And I would imagine that most people that put together these type of decks have 4 copies of Urbrass Forge. We're going to see how we do with just 2. We've done this multiple times with lots of attractive cards where we only have 1 copy sometimes, 2 copies, maybe 3, and we managed to have it show up often enough that it's a fun deck. And I thought I'd try it because I haven't really used the Forge yet myself, but it's been very popular lately. In the last couple of weeks, I've been coming across it a lot. Let's see, creature first. Blue control can be a problem for us just because they have all these fading hopes, so we're really built up around the idea of building our counters up. And they can ruin that by throwing our creatures back up into our hand. Whatever we've accumulated, they can wait till just the right time and spoil all of our plans. And they're blue, of course, so they take a really long time to figure stuff out. Whereas we know exactly what we want to do. Blue has so many choices. Red is so easy. We can't afford those. So if they put down a creature, we play that. Otherwise, we're playing that. It's pretty easy. We just have to give them the chance to decide to do nothing. Thank you, blue. Okay, they did absolutely nothing. We can afford the Skitterfang now. Let's go ahead and see what kind of... Okay. We're not going to do anything with that just yet. We'll just attack for one measly little point of damage. I do want to kind of save these for greater impact. They have no counterspells? Alright, let's see. We only have oil counters on a couple of things. We'd have to activate that. Let's go ahead and do Reckless Impulse. Put down another bomb. Go ahead and take action. We'll give this thing Death Touch. Attack with it. It goes through. Just like we thought it would. Pass the turn. This thing can get pretty big pretty fast. Do they have draw spells? And are you going to copy Latinam Adept or something else? They can even just have another Curate and pump these up. They're mimicking my Vindictive Flamestoker? Really? Kind of surprised. Why wouldn't you just get another 3/3? We will let that pass. Even if we thought we could do 3 damage, they could still have a draw card thing and put it a +1 counter at the very end. Let's get rid of this. Let's go ahead. We can just give another oil counter to the Skitterfang so it doesn't run out. We don't want to waste the Ickerplate Golem, so we put that down. And oil counters on this. We'll decline to use any of them. 5 more points of damage. And now I have 3 things with oil counters on them, so if they don't start pumping this up, we can just kill it by bringing down the Anointer. +1. Whenever it attacks, draw a card. So now you were at 5/4. Draws another card, it'll be at 6/5. So out of the range of Urabrass Anointer already. Do we care? Let's go ahead and put those on here. Ooh, this is lovely. 3 of you. Yes, let's take action. We'll go ahead and do lifelink, because they're tapped out there. And that is game, set, and match. It's very strange to see blue attempting to be aggressive. You had a creature you couldn't afford thrown away. All you had was 2 curates, 1 creature, and 1 enchantment, and you were trying to knock me down. That's very strange. I'm going to assume that their goals were different, and the way their deck is constructed, that they were not drawing the cards in the right order they wanted. They didn't have any problem getting lands. Kind of weird they didn't have counter spells. I would have expected much more access to cards that would have let them draw extra cards if you're going to put Latinam Adept in your deck. No sign of Urbrass Forge yet, really. Maybe someday. When's the last time you saw Inscribed Tablet? We have so many 1-drops, I would be surprised if we didn't have at least one good 1-drop in our opening hand every time. There's a Forge! Oh, poison. Can we get things out with the Forge before they poison us? Okay. Kind of depends on if they keep mana open here or not. If they're going to keep their mana open, the blue mana... Oh, they're not. Okay. So that means the Forge comes down. They're red, white, and blue, so they could have things to deal with artifacts. Here's a Monument to Perfection strategy. Hitsugo consumes all. So we're getting an idea of what's in their deck. And since that non-token creature leaves, it counts to pump up the Fuselings. Oh, 4 colors, and they might have board wipes. You don't usually see 4 colors with Prologue to Phyresis. But maybe they've got a combo with Phyrexian Atlas. We saw the Monument to Perfection land. So it looks like it's just a really big poison strategy. And they've got access to 6 mana already. Getting rid of 1 Fuseling pumped up the other one. Ooh, another Forge. I can't really resist that, can I? You can't stop that. They can add 1 mana of any color, but what can they do? They've got 1 land we know of. And what are the other 2 cards? Yeah, you may not like it, but you've got to let us do it. It's my turn. I'll let you have your turn. This is the problem when I take mono red into ranked battles too, is it's a very simple deck. I usually win in 4 turns or I run into trouble. But my opponents lately have, like, they roped me on turn 2. It's completely unnecessary. But if I'm not recording, I just pull out my cell phone and I play a mobile game, and every minute or 2 I get to make a turn while I do other stuff. It's when we turn to creating YouTube content for all of you that I start to get irritated when they take such a long time. Because I don't really feel that I should see. There we go. There's blue with throwing all of our hard work back up at us. What do we want to keep? I think we keep the one that's a 5/1 damage already. So that's all happening during their turn. And I'm still at 1 poison counter, so their poison strategy is so far proven completely ineffective. I'm just putting down yet another Forge. Not another one, just one of the same ones. They've got access to 2 mana. Can they stop the 5/1? They've got something holding up priority, but it could just be tapping the artifact. Don't keep us in suspense. Come on, Ace. Oh, they can't stop it. I'm pretty sure that means they can't stop us next turn at all. If they get rid of the 6/1, would they be able to stop the second Forge? This is already going to be a 2/1 coming at it. And we have Trample over here. And I'm doing on this off of 3 lands. Two non-land cards with mana value 4 or less. What do we got? Fateful Absence. Gets rid of 1. And they get a White Sun's Twilight. Not enough. An Invasion of Alar has nothing to do with poison, so what are they doing? Good game. We're working and we got the Forge out. We got 2 Forges out. I'd like to note for the record, we only have 2 Forges in our entire deck, and we got them both out within the first 7 turns. I don't know if there's a frequency given to each card. I do know that there are some times when I've seen decks that were played in Historic, and they do really well, and then suddenly the cards don't show up. It's cards that later became banned. Like, they wouldn't, Magic Wizards wouldn't ban them for a while, but they would, even if you had 4 copies, they would be in the bottom 20 cards of your deck, and it seemed like every single time. And the only way that we were able to win is we would find cards that would go search them out and sort of cheat them out earlier from from deep within the deck. Or we'd have like no creatures and just that creature, and we'd have a card that would summon only creatures. And we'd resort to those type of tactics because we found out, you know, hey, we're playing with these 4 copies of these cards that are overpowered. We know they should probably be banned. But Wizards changed things with their little online algorithms. We know they did. We just can't prove it. But, you know, they've made so many different cards with so many different abilities that we found ways around it. So, is the Forge kind of geared towards appearing earlier, is the question. And if so, why? Why not just give it the same percentage to appear as everything else? I don't really have things to deal with enchantments or artifacts myself. So, if we can't kick things into higher gear... This is nice. The Sprinter pumps up the Fuseling, and the Sprinter comes back up in my hand, so if they have some way to get rid of it, I still get to keep it. They can go after the 1/1s. But if they have trouble getting rid of these with removal, I have a couple of ways to just keep pumping them up. Like they used to say on Saturday Night Live. We will pump you up! Ooh, the Forge. Do I just continue with this? They know I have this. Let me hide the Forge for a second. We're going to spread the love. That's 9 points of damage coming at you on turn 4. And what do you have? Do you have a flash creature? Any kind of interaction at all. Cosmic Rebirth to get 1 life. Wow. They're using what cards they have available, but they weren't given much. And if they do a board wipe, we just put down the Forge. That is not sufficient life gain. You need to do more than that. they didn't put down a creature. What in the world is going on? If they can't react at all, I'm assuming they've got some way to react. Because this is lethal. You have 5 mana and 4 cards. That is also not enough. 2 March of the Machine Aftermath cards. You may put it in the battlefield. If you don't put it into your hand, you gain 3 life. It's exact lethal. That's 3 wins in a row. That must be because I lost 3 times before in my playtesting. We'll go right back in it again. This is doing much better than I thought it would. A lot of times I'll put together a concept and I just really don't know how. Like my playtesting, I had 4 churning reservoirs, and when I only have 2 forges, having 4 reservoirs is too much, so I took a reservoir out. You know, these guys might do better against us. I guess I'll just go for elimination right now. A 1/1 with Death Touch and Toxic is kind of tough against us. They just have a replacement. I should have known. So I think we do this. And we're kind of just going to be in a race against them, right? I don't have enough to take out all their creatures. He's there to be a chump blocker, so we get to pump up the Fuseling when he dies. And that's their 3rd one. They're all the same, right? Did they just get 3 in a row? They did. The exact same threat. And look at us. We're outpacing them on land draw. We can put that down now. We can put this down now. No reason not to attack. And we got a forge coming up. And they are not being given land, so kind of a bum deal for them. And why would Arena do this to me? Let me win 3 in a row and then put me up against somebody who's not getting a land draw? That was not fun. You didn't give them a chance. Is Arena broken today? Maybe that's why Urbrass Forge is so popular. Maybe there's some hidden cheat code along with that card. You use it, you're just gonna win. I don't know what's going on. I like the Forge. When you get it out early enough, it can be a definite game winner. Which, I mean, people are used to things like Shieldred now at turn 4 being a game winner. But for mono red, maybe not even mono red, maybe just using red and having copies of the Forge in your deck. There's a lot of people that still ignore artifacts. But when you have something like Forge, it's so potentially deadly if you're not able to stop attackers. Now we have to wait every second for blue to decide what they're going to do with their 1 untapped land. Why would you play blue and have a Chandra deck sleeve? That's misleading. Oh, poison again. Well, I feel confident now, actually. Here, we do our normal thing. They're tapped out, so we pump up the Fuseling. 7 points of damage on turn 3. You know what it is? The reason they let me win 4 times in a row, they want me to... oil counter. And just this one. They're gonna let it through. 3 more points of damage. I could use 1 more land so I could bring down the Sprinter and use Free from Flesh. They want me to take this into ranked, that's why. That's why Wizards let me win 4 in a row. Two poison counters. I guess I'm doing it this way. There's my next mana. Okay, they do give that up. Still 1 point of damage against them. The other Fuseling gets pumped up because we lost a creature. But Seed Shark alone can be our undoing. They're going to get all of these things. And they've got more land than us. Oh, hello. 4 poison counters. 3 Prologue to Phyresis already. We're doing this again. Attack! Block it, block it, block it, block it, block it, block it. It's 7. There you go. +2. +2 keeps it alive. What do you got? It still dies. Yes. Oil counter. Sprinter goes back up. And now the worm can turn. We lost all our stuff. We're half dead from poison. 2, 4, 6, and that'll give the 7, so it can block with a 4/4. We can bring you down. We can bring you down. We can add an oil counter to you, and that's it. And now here comes their army. And they might have us. We didn't quite have enough ammo. We got 2 of these and a Sprinter, and we did good overall, but... how do we get past the Stomper and this one? I'm not getting the right cards. That gives me 1 blocker. Two oil counters on that one, so it stays on the field. I can't really afford to attack. Take action. Gross. Yeah, I think they finally got us. I feel like I have to block there with those. Do we live? Or do you have another? They have another one. Just what they needed. Oh, get them both to survive. Okay. Okay, so I need a board wipe. I need one of my 2 burn down the houses. Didn't get it. There's only one thing that has an oil counter on it, so I can do 1 point of damage bringing that down. That's all that we can do. Kind of sad. Incubation wipes the floor. Well, you know, incubation is March of the Machines. It came up after Phyrexius, so a lot of times they design the next mechanic to be slightly more exciting, so that they're building and shaping, guiding us in a different way than the previous expansion set. Not too surprising to see them come up with a zig or a zag as far as what they introduce as far as mechanics in the next expansion set that's exciting and makes us want to play with it. It always helps when they change it up slightly as to how things interact. And incubate is a pretty insidious mechanic. We've got a forge again. Just need one more land. I feel like we should do the Fuseling first. And then comes the Flame Stoker. Oh, hello. Yeah, we'll still do this. We'll do this. No attacks. This is the pre-made werewolf deck, so we could be in trouble. If they want to just sit tight and defend, they can. They're not going to. Didn't get my land. But I also didn't get any of my 4 copies of the sorcery that let me go get land. And they're going to come up much faster than us. And that is not what I need. And I forgot about Howling Moon again. I always forget about Howling Moon. And I can't even attack through that. We are seeing the limits of this deck. So maybe having 2 copies of Urbrass Anointer is too many. I'm not able to build up... Well, if I keep these 3 around... That's 4... See, that's not enough. This has already got 5, right? And that's lethal right there. Urbrass Anointer is not working out for me. Which is weird because I've already got a cheap deck. You'd figure if we last longer. But here we just didn't even last. So maybe... Let's go ahead and show you the deck. 4 wins and 2 losses? Yeah, I think I'm close to 50-50 for the entire day since I first crafted this. I made it last night. So yeah, this is... Maybe it's just because the type of mana curve that I have here. It's slated to have all the action right in here. And if this is coming up, it's just a dead hand. It's just a dead card in my hand a lot of the time. So maybe the frequency is too much, which is really weird because, as I said, when I was losing, I was mostly losing to combinations of green and another color, and they would just ramp into really huge creatures so that, you know, I couldn't win by turn 5 or 6, and they were getting out 5 mana cards and 6 mana cards and 7 mana cards. And I keep getting these cards in my hand that I can't cast. And it's not just this deck. It's been a lot of decks the last couple of weeks where I'll put something together, and if I put in like a 6 mana or a 7 mana card, I'm always getting it in the very first 7 card draw, and I never get it out before I die and stuff like that. It's happened in patterns to me before. I don't know if it's universal or if there's just certain people that they do it to. I got no way of proving that. But I do my own anecdotal experience over the last couple of weeks. I can't go crazy with much more than this right now in my build with 4 and 5 mana cards, or I get really heavily punished, especially with the fast meta that we're coming up against these days. So when you saw there, you know, I needed something else besides Urbrass Anointer, or maybe I need to have a different a different removal spell, an additional removal spell, because I am light on removal. I acknowledge that. But overall, not too shabby a performance. I kind of like it. Go ahead and remember, like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of the deck. Let me know what you would change to it. And granted, of course, if we ever get another Forge, I'd probably just throw a Forge in there anyway and have chances of getting an early Forge instead of an Anointer no matter what. It might be interesting to do a different kind of deck with oil counters, maybe red and blue, where the Anointer would fit in better. I haven't done any research and looked at what kind of deck construction the Anointer is being used in. I usually just try and figure it out for myself. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.